I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have roll call, please?
Ann Pierce.
Lauren Ferruccio.
Eliza Drollet.
Lila Duncan.
Heidi Duford.
Tim Broderick.
Carol Locke.
Jason Henry.
Matt Jazokis.
Christy Wood.
Brandy Pelletier.
Eric Bordeaux.
Okay, we have a public hearing scheduled tonight for the open enrollment space for 24-25. So let's open the public hearing. And we're looking for public input. Okay. Does anyone have any public input regarding the open enrollment space? Okay. Did you want to add anything, Mr. Broderick?
No, close the public hearing. It's in
All
my
right.
report. The part that you need to take action on is in my report.
Okay, so we'll hear the actionable items in his report. So I'm closing the public hearing and I'm opening it up to our regular public input. Did anyone in our audience have any public input tonight? All right, in that case, I'll close public input. Can we have an agenda review? Did anyone want to add or subtract anything? I did ask Tim to do a little presentation tonight regarding the new Dean of Students as well as the AP and how that all evolved. So he's going to do that before we take action on different nominations. So we'll add that to the review. Anything else?
I make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? All right, approval of the minutes for April 16th, 2024.
I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of April 16th, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I abstain.
Okay. All right, finance report, Heidi.
You have the finance report as of April 30th summarized in your packet. That balance, the budget balance is $545,000. As of today, it is down to, well, it's not down, I shouldn't say that. It's $455,000. I just wanted to make that notation.
Any questions for Heidi? Okay. Oh, okay. Is our student, do we have our student report tonight?
We do.
Okay, great.
So Wyatt Barney is participating in boys tennis tonight,
Okay.
so he could not be there. For athletics, the girls tennis finished their season 3-11. The boys tennis regular season record concluded at 9-5, which earned them the 5th seed, where they play away at the 4-seed White Mountains on Friday. They are currently playing in the semifinal round against 1st seed Plymouth. Boys baseball went 10-7 this regular season, which earned them a playoff entry at the 9th seed. The girls softball team remains perfect as they earned 1st seed and aim to win their 3rd consecutive championship following 3 years of no losses. For events, the prom took place last Saturday. Everything went smoothly and it was a great time. One of our seniors made the playlist and truly 98% of the students danced. And most of them danced the entire night. So it was
That's a
really
big thing.
amazing, wonderful group of kids. The senior class took place last week, and soon-to-be graduates enjoyed their fun class-wide experience. You guys approved earlier in the season. They took a boat ride on the Mount Washington to Weirs. They spent their time at Weirs, then they went to Steel Hill, and they also got to kayak over in Franklin. So, talking to the students today, they had such a great time. Mesa Papasino organized a successful car wash fundraiser as his NHS project. Additionally, Olivia Noyes organized a pack to make cards for the folks at Taylor Community Retirement Home, and she and a group of students went in person and delivered those cards to the residents. And the student council wrapped up their final initiative for the year by providing the teachers and staff with tokens of appreciation. So they did that during Staff Appreciation Week, and teachers received notes from the students and other treats throughout the week, and also a beautiful tote bag with Prospect on.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, now you're up.
Now I'm up. Okay. So we're really excited because FBLA is going to the nationals. They performed, I won't go into all the details, but I just want to put out that Katie Healy and Ava Pelletier and Sam McGrath and True Reed and Avery Genta all did incredibly well at states, as well as Dylan Miller taking, he's gotten his third time as receiving the New Hampshire FBLA's Who's Who in FBLA. He's opted not to go to the national competition, but we do have a group of 5 students that are going to be traveling down to Florida at the end of June, early July. So really super exciting. And they will be recognized as a gold champion chapter at the national conference. I just want to give a shout out to Jen Cove. The FBLA makes a positive difference in this school continually, whether it's through bulletin boards or fundraisers or through highlighting charity. FBLA is always visible at the forefront, and I just so appreciate her tireless work. And you know, she's giving her time. She gets PD when she goes down to Florida, but she is donating her time a week out of her summer vacation to take these kids down and give them such a rich and exciting experience that they're going to remember forever. They've been fundraising. They are very creative and clever with their fundraising. So they're going to be doing, they asked me if they could do some dress down days the last 3 days of school, that teachers pay $10, that will raise money. And I said, yeah, we're all going to be hot and needing to be in cooler clothes anyway. And they're selling t-shirts now, so they're always looking for ways to raise money. And the request for that overnight trip, you're going to be asked to vote on that later and approve that. FFA, Future Farmers of America competition. We're so proud of how well the students did. Part of Lakes Regional Technical School. We had Kaida Smith and Jordana Price and Luca McGuire. They all placed highly, and you know, were recognized for their efforts in the different competitions. I'm going to be talking in our June board meeting about the 2 people that Mason and Olivia that did National Honor Society projects. But in this board report, I want to just do a shout out to Keegan McCausland. Her National Honor Society was through the Live and Let Live farm, and she was able to deliver 4 to 5 boxes of pet supplies. Dylan Miller, he's, you know, this was scheduled originally and snowed out, but he finally was able to take place. He got a team to do the wheelchair basketball tournament to raise money for the Granite State Independent Living Association. And very quickly he raised $1,000 for that really important cause. We're really happy with the work that we've done around truancy this year. Some of it was you helping us to clarify the language around absences so that parents were really clear on understanding when your kids could be excused and not excused. We saw early on that we had a lot of kids that were very quickly adding up days by not coming to school. And so we, early on, with the help of Lynn Anderson, who has been in our interventionist social worker role, she connected with her friends at the state, Juvenile Protection Services, and we started meeting in October and kind of saying, what kind of process do we have to have here at the high school that early intervention. So we started sending out 3-day letters, 5-day letters, 7-day letters, 10-day letters to families. We, at 5 days absence, we would have a parent meeting, and parents would come in and we'd problem solve. Why is your student absent? How can we help? the beauty of working with juvenile protection services is that it's not, we're gonna send you to court and we're gonna lower the boom on you and you're not being a great parent or a great student. It's, what does your family need? How can we support you to help you get to school or help your parents get you to school? And I really like that approach. The Alton Police Department has been great in working with us to find out a way that if we do, unfortunately, get to a point where we have to make a court referral, that they will go and they will represent us and we will represent the school and we will get more things in place. But usually what we found so far is that we have cooperation with the families and they're accepting the services and we're seeing improvements in attendance. So the bottom line is we want families to feel supported, not targeted. And so I think that I'm excited that we'll carry this forward and hit the ground running in the new school year. And really proud of the World Language Department. Senora Kimball and Monsieur Long have been giving the biliteracy test, and so this is the first time it's been at Prospect Mountain High School, and our students will have that sealed to put on their diploma. They'll be able to put it on their college applications. They'll be able to claim that they're biliteral in their applications for jobs, and a special thanks for Michelle for bringing this initiative to the department. And in your packet, you will also see her little write-up of how beautiful the trip to Spain went and how exciting that was for the kids. And both she and Peter Long are coming back and requesting that you also approve future trips. And so they want to start recruiting and fundraising now in order to prepare kids for our trips next April. And so you'll have a chance to look over those trips and hopefully approve them for next school year. And that is all from me today.
Thanks. Congratulations to all our students. They're doing really well. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions for Charlie? All right. Now we're on to Title IX regulations. Did anyone have any questions about the changes? No? Do you have anything to add? Tim?
No, they keep changing it.
I know. Happens all the time. Yep. All right, there's also in your packet a letter that was sent to the Epsom School Board. Were there any questions about that? Tim crafted it and I signed it. I read it first before I signed it. I don't usually sign something without reading, so no worries about that.
And no response as of yet?
No response.
I actually received a personal message from their superintendent indicating that they've met and prepared a response, and we should be receiving it, I assume, via the mail.
All right, technology report. Is Matt here? Did you want to present this? Were there any questions for Matt? Did you want to speak to your report, Matt, or?
Yeah, questions.
It's, if anyone has questions, Matt's here tonight, so.
Yeah, I think the main one was regarding the state grant and camera placement, which will go over
Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
I just want to thank Matt because when we came back from April break and we were reviewing some videos, I went, whoa, these cameras are so clear. So thank you for the work that you did. It's a nice clear.
So the new system is like, we could host a local FBI over the top.
Hopefully we don't need that, but okay.
It's exciting.
All right. The other Matt, curriculum and assessment.
Thank you. In your board packet, you have several items. The first is the results for this year's SAT scores. You'll see that we had 64 students complete the SAT, which is approximately 73% of our junior class, and that's in line with what we've had over the last several years. We're right around that mid-70s percentage there. We had 19 opt-outs and 5 students were absent. So we'll continue to monitor the students taking that test for us. But you see here is the results. If you look at our percentages above proficient in ELA, the high school was 60%, where the state was at 63%. So we dropped some points down from last year, while the state increased. Again, not where we want to be, but closer to the state average. So we'll take a look at those results as well. Math continues to be a concern. We continue to drop. While we look at the percentages of our drop compared to the state's drop, they're in line. However, when we're at 23% of the students at or above proficient is not acceptable. So obviously, from that, I will be meeting with the English and math departments. We're going to dissect this, take a look at the questions, the way they're being worded, the way they're being asked. Unfortunately, they've changed because we went to all electronic. So you used to be able to look and say, okay, we had a large percentage of kids get this question wrong, so we could dissect that question and see what's there. Now it just gives you a bank of questions. So what I've done is gone through and looked at level 1 questions, level 2, level 3. And then compare that to the percentage of kids that are not scoring in 1s, 2s, and 3s, so that we can look at those types of questions. And while they may not be the exact ones, at least to give us a baseline of information to do that. One of the things that I want to add into that piece of it, this is sort of that we keep talking about the educational equity, and this is another reason around that piece of it, because we need to get our kids exposed, all of our kids, regardless of what quote-unquote track they're on. We need to make sure that they're exposed to the standards like everybody else, so that when we look at these types of assessments, that we can compare that piece of it. If we're not doing the same things, it would stand to reason that some of our kids are going to struggle with that piece. So again, we'll keep looking at that as a way of improvement. Going back to that piece of it, we are going to be doing some professional development. Right now I have 8 people from the high school that are interested in doing the embedded honors workshop, which will be June 25th, 26th, and 27th. So it'll be 3 full days of really kind of looking at what the standards are, looking at personalized pathways, and really taking a look at it through a project-based lens, so that as we continue to look at making that transition the following year, they start to get the ability to create these units that embed the honors piece of it. So we look at the standards, we understand the standards. Again, regardless of what track the kid is on, the standards are the same. The way in which we're asking them to present their information will be different.
Are you running that workshop, Matt?
I'm along with the consultant, yep.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
So right now we have 3 of our teachers that are finishing up now. Those are the 3 that will be teaching the summer school. So they're going through the same process. So we'll have about 11. I've asked for people if they're interested in one last call before we move forward. So, but again, I think it's exciting for them, the work that they've done. Liz Kahn, Kate Barber, and Tom Owen have been working with the consultant. They'll be doing some follow-up stuff on June 6th and 7th. So
Okay,
we'll use the summer school as sort of a guide to see how these things work. They'll be creating those units using the embedded honors process.
So one of those was English and one was?
English, social studies, and science, yeah. So we're hoping to get a math person in there because, again, for the summer piece of it, that would be, well, for both pieces it would be really good, but especially for those kids that may need some credit recovery in mathematics. So.
Thank you.
ELO update, just some things here. So right now we have 9 students enrolled in the Alton Dance Academy that are doing the ELOs. The mid-year reflections have been completed. As we head down the line, and when I say mid-year, both the student and the teacher have completed those pieces of it. As we head down the home stretch, students will participate in the recital and complete another self-assessment along with the teacher evaluation. And then what I will do is Linda Sheff and myself will meet with the Alton Dance Academy, work out what worked, what didn't work, and make some changes for next year. Also in your packet, you'll have what our ELO website will look like shortly. We've put the finishing touches to it. And then when you look through the link, it kind of gives you that big overview. Currently, our school counseling department is working with the consultant to kind of go over each of the pieces. When you look through the packet, there's a lot of little details that are in there, so to kind of get a full view of what that is. Rhonda Fernal is also part of that. Rhonda's our transition coordinator. So this gives her the opportunity, as well as we start to look at kids who are transitioning out, to get some ELO work, as well as internships and things of that nature.
I thought this was really good, by the way. Lots of great information and really comprehensive.
Thank you.
so.
Yeah. Our hope was to have an opportunity to meet with community members and kind of go through this. We'll probably do that, in the fall.
Yeah.
So we'll do that because, again, we want to get people excited about what the program is, especially when we're going to be knocking on their doors for ELOs and internships and things of that nature. So I do have a request this evening. So one of our courses that we have is CAD architectural. And so in working with Matt, we were looking at the software that we use. And the current software that we use is very limited and really isn't the same as what a lot of the kids will be using if they go out into this industry. So what we're looking at is AutoCAD. The thing about AutoCAD is that Autodesk is the parent company. They won't sign the agreement, which most of the other companies do, but like similar to Adobe, it's something that our kids, if they're going into that field, should be using more so than what we're using now. So what we're asking tonight is to get your approval to move forward with Autodesk, and that will allow us to be able to utilize that software. It's cloud-based. Matt, jump on in because I'm out of my realm right now.
No, what Matt said is spot on. Here we use Adobe, and what we do is we send the waiver home, basically saying Adobe is an industry standard for Photoshop and other illustration graphic design software, but they're not a DPA, so if you sign this, you can't take the course. And we're looking into that because AutoCAD is used in almost every major university that does architectural design and engineering, and it's also a standard in the professional work environment. So we're just trying to bring our kids into like the right level of what they will be working in the future. Should they continue on that path? That's it. What we are currently using isn't used like anywhere. It's like a very low level CAD software.
So
With the suite with Autodesk, there's a ton of programs and they're all cloud-based.
So I don't see it on the action.
Right,
items.
do you want
My
a
apologies.
motion on this?
No, you want a proposal now?
I can wait till June if need be.
No,
No.
that's fine. Go
I
ahead,
make a
Ann.
motion that we approve the proposal for Autodesk.
Second, and just I asked to, it's at no cost.
There's no cost.
It
Go
is,
ahead.
For anyone who's not sure, DPA stands for Data Privacy Agreement. We have 8 laws in the state of New Hampshire, the third most in the United States, regarding how school districts are required to manage student data to keep it private. And one of our requirements is that the software manufacturer of any title we use has to sign a DPA, agreeing a data privacy agreement, agreeing that they will abide by all of New Hampshire's requirements regarding how they store data, two-factor authorization on their data farms, limits on cloud-based storage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's really no way in the law around that. So the only workaround some districts have come up with, other than just breaking the law, is to get board permission to send a waiver document home to parents and have parents sign off, yes, it's okay with me if my child uses this software.
Okay.
AutoCAD is definitely the way to go.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question on the SAT. I'm just curious as to what proficient school is.
Oh, in terms of,
They change it.
Can we,
What
do
do
we
we
just
wanna-
have the motion first voted on and then we'll ask that question? Is that okay? So we have a motion on the floor, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry, Eunice, I just wanted to take care of it.
I don't want to give you the wrong numbers, but they're in the 400s for both math and ELA, so, but I'll get I'll get the specific number in a second. I have it on my laptop, sorry.
One of the ways that I used to, with my faculty, explain the SATs is when you see a number like 23%, what that says is that 23% of the students can go to college and earn a 70 or above in their entry-level math class. So when we look at, like English, 60% of students could go on to college and earn a 70% or above. So it's a predictor of college success. So that helps too.
Do you know how many kids out of the 64 took the PSATs?
I don't have that information, but I certainly can get that for you.
64.
no, she was asking for the PSAT, right?
Yeah, to see how many of the, 64 students took the SATs, how many of those students took the PSATs? And if there is, more reason to want to continue at, with the PSATs throughout the year.
It's a good question.
Under No Child Left Behind and the Every Student Succeeds Act, for me, the most relevant information has been what you have in front of you, which is a comparison to the state average.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what we're looking at, we have a reference right here that tells us what the average school in New Hampshire or school's students are doing. So we can easily see that over the years, and this goes back, 7 years minus the year that nobody took the test due to the pandemic. In English language arts, we've been just above, just below, right around the state average, sort of right in line with other schools in the state. And since 2018 in math, that simply hasn't been the case, and it hasn't changed. So it is absolutely an area of concern. I've come in and spoken with the faculty about just being open to what the data tells us and trying things. We don't have to get the right answer every time, but if we consistently see data sending us the same message, we just want to try something. So it's certainly a work in progress.
When you look at the, so this is the percentage that's above, at or above the benchmark. So the English benchmark is 480 and the math is 530. If you look at the overall score, the combined SATs for this year was a 989 from the state, and we were at a 973 combined of that piece of it. Of all the kids that took the SAT, the total group, that average was a 954. So there's some other information. So there's, again, previous we were at the state was at a 994 and we were at a 992. So the gap was a little bit shorter last year than it is this year.
Any other questions for Matt? All righty, we're on to you, Tim.
Thank you.
So on my report, first, the school calendar for next year that you've already approved included election days in November and March, which has been our plan now for the last couple of years. There is a state primary in September, and we've been asked if we can accommodate that. You might recall, you don't have it in print, I emailed you a PDF. It's a bunch of pages. You're getting a copy in PDF, and it'll be in the minutes from that PDF when we publish them, meaning my written report. So you might recall from our conversations about the calendars that we're constrained on both ends by Labor Day and Juneteenth, and we're really trying to make the calendar work. So I need to check to make sure that we don't have a regulatory problem with this, but if we could do a planned remote day at the high school, we could keep students and faculty engaged, have a day of school on the day of the state primary in September. I can't ask you to approve that tonight because I still have a couple of regulatory things I need to check on, but that's my first thought. If you don't like that, we get to things like starting a day earlier before Labor Day. I know you don't like that idea. And then we get to, do we honor the Juneteenth holiday, have a day off, and then come back for one day? I know you don't want to do that. Do we ignore the Juneteenth holiday since it's federal but not state and just have school, which we're doing this year, but we got forced into that by snow days? I kind of think you don't want to do that either. So I'm going with this approach first, and I just wanted to sort of give you some forewarning that that's coming.
So the elementaries would have regular classes, is that what you're saying? Doesn't Barnstable vote in your?
Yes, and I'm not sure.
Okay.
No problem at ACS.
So
No,
I
we
think,
don't vote
one way to approach it could be looking at it like we are having a planned remote day to work out any kinks.
Yeah.
Just to kind of set the tone of what's expected when we do have those remote days in the winter. So, maybe that's the approach to take.
I'm all for it. I think the fewer days we take off at this point, So we have a state primary in September.
Yes.
Yes.
This will not happen every year.
Yeah.
So just to revisit, because I mentioned it last month, the idea of an independent scholarship foundation, I'm talking to you about it because it solves some issues that concern the board, but it would actually be an independent 501c3 registered nonprofit, registered with the Secretary of State, filing its own taxes, its own bylaws and board of directors, just like your Timberwolves athletic boosters. I just said your, but it's not yours. It's an independent. They're responsible for their taxes and their compliance with the law and things like that. So I am meeting with a group with folks from both towns who are interested in starting something like this. The precipitating events are more than one. One of them is, and I have copies of my July of 2020 memo about this if anyone's interested. I found that the school was holding past graduating classes fundraising money in its student activities fund. You can't do that. That's against the law. That money has to go away when the graduating class goes away. There are a few ways you can do that, but they're either complicated or risky, and I have it all written out in the memo, but I'm not sure you're interested tonight. One of the things a senior class can do is a class gift. That's kind of clean and easy. Another thing they can do is donate to a nonprofit. So if there were an independent 501c3 scholarship foundation to benefit students graduating from this school, it would be an option for senior classes. They wouldn't have to do it. They could do class gifts. They could do any of the other things that are more complicated, but it would create an option. More to the point, though, is I come from a place where we had one of these, and we had built a $250,000 endowment and gave a bunch of nice scholarships to kids every year when they graduated, which is pretty cool. And we had a golf tournament, which is fun, too, if you happen to like playing golf. So I'll keep you posted, but really, if it happens, it'll sort of happen on its own with its own leadership. The Safe School Grant, you'll talk about the detail of in non-public. Matt already mentioned it. You will go to non-public for that purpose if you choose to under RSA 91A32 Section I. Somebody write that down, please. Thank you. You held a public hearing earlier this evening regarding open enrollment. And as of today, we opened the application portal at the beginning of May. I think it was the 2nd, not the 1st. We have 7 applications in. If we go by the policy that you've approved or that the joint board has previously approved, those applications will run through May 31st. My suggestion to you is that you don't change that. Let the 7 applications that have come in be processed. And students enrolled. That allows us to schedule at a time when the rest of the school is still being scheduled, so we don't, it's much better than a scenario where we're coming in during the summer when classes already have been finalized. And
Are these all for potential freshmen?
so these are, 5 of them are freshmen, and 2 would fall into the second part of my recommendation. So my recommendation tonight, after your public hearing that you held, is to either set the limit at 10 or 15 seats. My suggestion is you just do 10 incoming 9th and 10th graders, but then make available 5 seats for upperclassmen, as you did the first time around, who have younger siblings in that 9th and 10th grade group. Or, and this is a new suggestion that I'm asking you tonight in response to a situation that we have, that it's a student who has already gone to school here. So entering 11th or 12th grade, but formerly a resident of Alton or Barnstead who might be moving, you can use open enrollment as a way to allow a student like that to continue, instead of in the past when you have been asked, the joint board has been asked just to let a student stay for a year to be here as a senior, for example, after they move out. And the board has allowed that. But under open enrollment, you can do that and collect tuition from the district where the student resides. So my suggestion to simplify is that you make available 10 seats for 9th or 10th graders, and then 5 for upper class students who either are the older siblings of an incoming 9th or 10th grader under open enrollment, or are an upper class student who previously has been enrolled here already.
So moved. I'm not gonna re-say that, so.
This is not under action item, so.
Are you looking for a
making
motion on this to
You just
clarify?
did the motion. I'm wondering if there are questions. I said it the long way. I tried to say it the short way, but I want to make sure it's
So
clear.
Ann seconded that. Okay, any questions, comments? Sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah, I think it's smart to have the 5 flexibility for the previous students or siblings, so
Sure.
it's reasonable.
I agree. All right. Hopefully we'll get that to happen. Can I have a vote, please? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty.
Thank you. So, continuing updates regarding open enrollment, I anticipate that the 9 students currently enrolled will return next year, along with whatever new students enroll after the first round of admissions closes May 31st. If there are still seats available, which as of right now there would be 3 9th or 10th grade seats still available because we have 7, those would continue on a rolling admissions basis until they're filled or until August 31st. So that's how we will proceed. You have another meeting in June if you have any more thoughts or questions about this. And then finally, on open enrollment, I told you last month about the decision by the State Board of Education that had been made in a parent appeal in Pittsfield, New Hampshire, and that the parent, not the district, had prevailed by a unanimous vote of the State Board of Education. We still haven't received that decision in writing, but we're looking forward to it. In the meantime, we have sent invoices to all of the other districts that have students attending here this year under open enrollment, and if their superintendents or business administrators come back to us with any questions or objections, we will respond with copies of that decision by the State Board as soon as we receive it.
Any other questions for Tim? Okay.
I do have a separate memo. I'll do a take one, pass it down approach. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and an extra. And then the rest this way. This is regarding the DENPAC Review Faculty Committee that met this year. Its chair, Nicole Richard, is here, so if you don't want to ask me your questions, you might prefer to talk to her, which I would understand and not take personally. I've met with them twice. They first sent some preliminary findings to me in March. We met on April 8th and again May 14th to talk about what they were thinking and why. In between, Nicole was kind enough to share a bunch of data with Matt and myself. I don't have to read this to you, but they distinguished between the first 2 years of DENPAC and this past year, where the committee seemed to, I'm looking at Nicole to make sure I get this right, but I'm pretty confident, that things went pretty well the first 2 years and dropped off a bit in the past year. So rather than abandon the effort, and I've kind of summarized on the first page why the original Joint Faculty Administration Committee came up with this. There are advantages to a 7-period schedule, but there are also advantages to block periods. So part of the idea was to have a hybrid of the two and hopefully enjoy the benefits of both. There are weaknesses of both too, of course. Get some kind of advisory into the schedule, which had previously been lacking, and furthermore, the administration at the high school had previously tried to implement an advisory and had not been able to. So through this effort, it was done collaboratively by faculty and administration, so that was an administrative goal going into this project. And then finally, the goals of PAC time had to do with, especially coming out of the pandemic, trying to reconnect the community within the school, not just faculty with students, but students with each other. So again, I said I wouldn't read it to you. There's a summary of things that on the second page that the committee thought seemed to go pretty well. The first couple of years, student engagement was pretty good. We ended up using the term rigor, even though we're not talking about traditional academics here, but offerings seemed to be a little more rigorous the first couple of years and fell off a little bit in the last year. And more of the activities were located here at the school. There was less taking off and going other places, which was interesting, I thought. And then during the last year, seniors especially started getting dismissed on Thursdays, so participation declined dramatically. It was difficult getting signups processed at times, even though they were supposed to be done at a certain time, and the committee identified this problem and then suggested a solution to it. A little less rigor, a little more recreational stuff going on, and like I already said, more trips off campus as opposed to activities here. So the first and sort of central suggestion from this committee was to look this summer at the possibility of moving from the current schedule. I'm on the bottom of the second page, which has second period block, fourth period block, and sixth period block meeting, then DEN, then PAC on Thursdays, which positions PAC time at the end of the day, and starting next year having period 2 block first, then DEN or advisory followed by PAC activities, and then fourth and sixth block after that. That could address a number of the issues I just described, including students being present and being engaged, and making it feel, again, like it's part of what we do and not some extra thing appended to the week in school. The second suggestion was to consider some kinds of incentives, and again, this is summer work, for upper class students, especially seniors, to maybe propose activities and help lead them. Whatever that incentive might be, some elective credit or a distinction of some kind of graduation. If students meet a certain threshold, we can come back to you with some ideas about that. But that's another idea about getting seniors re-engaged in this.
Yeah. I think that offering credit, because I know some seniors do struggle to have all the credits that they need their senior year. So maybe to offer them credit if they run a PAC and have a minimum number of students that they would have to have in that PAC would be appropriate. I don't know, Nicole, what you...
I suggested that as well as possibly community service if they're running it.
Yeah.
I know it's not required anymore, but those kids that are going to college want that seal on their
We could do, I mean, I'm fine with doing both. I don't see as those two things being mutually exclusive.
So would school start late again? Well, it would. Okay, so we'd still have the delayed openings.
Keep the openings the way they are. And then the last suggestion was to designate a member of the faculty to be sort of the department leader for DEN and PAC, to make sure scheduling gets done on time, to make sure signups get done the way they're supposed to, and also to sort of be the arbiter of what's rigorous enough and what's an acceptable activity versus something we might want to discourage. And that's a pretty straightforward, extremely affordable thing from my perspective that we can take care of out of my office.
Can I comment on the trips off campus? I think that there's a fine line. I do think that there is certainly some benefits to doing off campus and doing off campus things, but maybe limiting it to a certain number or having there be kind of some guidelines. And I think still with having it in the middle of the day, you could still do it like as a morning trip or an afternoon trip. And that would also help, like you said, to limit the...
So the trips, I know a couple of them that were done this year. So the PAC sessions run for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So 3 out of the 4 weeks they were learning about it.
Yeah.
And then they would go on the field trip.
And there could still be an opportunity to do that kind of thing. It just wouldn't be during the middle of the day on Thursday, right? It could still be connected. We could still have trips after school connected to a PAC activity. So those were the 3 recommendations that ultimately the committee landed on after we met a couple of times. They talked about some other ideas. We have some faculty now who have previously worked in schools that had intercession programs, which is sort of related to what we're trying to do here. Actually, among our new hires for next year are a couple of teachers whose current districts do things similar to this. We're not the only ones trying to make this sort of thing work. So I'm hoping you'll let it go for another 3 years. Let us try these things at least for the next year and see how it goes.
Are you looking for an action item or just a vote of confidence or just a...
Whatever you want to call it.
Smile?
So, everyone on board with this? Do we need just consensus at this point?
Sure.
I mean, I trust the committee worked hard at this, and we need to give them the opportunity to continue, in my mind.
Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work.
If you, Oh boy, where did I put them? This is the best part. I have, and I'm not going to try to hand them out, 4 different possible gymnasium floor designs here from the flooring company. The Buildings and Grounds Committee looked at these and gave us some feedback. We will, if you want to pass these around and take some of them, there are 4 different ones here. There are 2 different center court logos proposed. Not one of these is the recommendation at this point. We got feedback. I've got 4 items written down from the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting tonight. We'll take other feedback if you have any. What we plan to do is ask the refinishing company to revise these, give us 4 as distinctly different as possible options, and then we will post them in the school with a QR code that faculty and staff and students can scan.
With their cell phones?
Yeah, these are all.
This year, not next year. And after school, Mrs. Pearson, and give their feedback. So that at your June meeting, we'll bring you a summary of that feedback, some kind of final option or 2, and you can choose what you want this thing to look like. And I will tell you at this point, my personal interest is only in facilitating this because I saw these 4 options and said, this is what we need, so the details are all up to the community. But I think it's pretty clear we're headed in the right direction.
I agree.
And getting it out in front of the kids is probably going to be the most important part. That's those 2.
And we're passing a second one down. Me too.
So, if you can't tell that they're all different, if you really looked at the detail, you would find the differences. But again, we have 4 of you have taken a closer look already, and given us some good feedback.
Maybe someone down there would like these too.
So let's talk about cell phones.
Matt, is it possible to turn the lights on?
So, May 15th, I don't remember if that was last week or the week before. Might have been last week. Matt Jazokis and I met with the student members of the National Honor Society and Student Council to talk about cell phones. And I wish Wyatt were here because he was a part of that. And as you might expect, because you've all worked with him here on the board, the other students involved in these activities are a lot like Wyatt, and they were all extremely thoughtful and insightful, and we had a good conversation. So they also recognized, and so did we, that they represent a segment of the student population that's not necessarily representative of the whole student population, right? Student Council and National Honor Society. But, you know, so be it. We were there and we talked to them, and at least we're aware of that. Like you've already heard from Wyatt this year, it sounded like overall the increased restrictions and more enforcement of the existing cell phone policy they've seen as beneficial this year.
Thank you.
So that was great. You had it. So that's encouraging, and I think it reinforces what Wyatt's already come to meetings and told you. He wasn't just saying it. Maybe it sounded like other students agreed, and by consensus. Were there 25 kids in the room? Something 25 or 30 students. This was not a small group. Overall, the idea of more restrictions seemed to make them a little nervous, and that's not a big surprise either. But at the same time, a couple of them volunteered. I'll quote one of them without identifying her. "I'm not the problem. You need to tell my mom to stop texting me." They also, as a group, seemed to recognize the problems in school discipline that every student having a cell phone in their pocket can produce. Specifically, a couple of students unfortunately get into a fight during lunch, and 15 phones come out and start taking videos, and it's being shared all over the place. It's not about public image or embarrassment, it's about legality. That is not legal in New Hampshire, in addition to violating school rules. So while I will not claim that a total ban on phones between 7:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. sounded like a good idea to these students. It didn't. They were really thoughtful about what kinds of restrictions might make sense, like could students in study hall only have access to them? Could we talk to each other during lunch? There is that perceived problem of the only way a parent can get in touch with a student these days is to text their child. We probably all of us went to school at a time when there was a way to get a message to your child, but that's just not, and I'm not talking about the kids at this point, that is not parent perception today. I'm not here tonight with a suggestion or a proposal, and I'll probably sidestep that even when the time comes and just put this in front of you all to talk about, and that time will be 1 month from now. Whether you choose to make a decision at that time or not is going to be up to you. The other thing I have done is I've reached out to the Department of Education, staff that are responsible for implementing the ESSER grants, to find out if we wanted to use some of those funds to fund restrictions, meaning the Yonder pouch program or something like that. Would that even be approvable under that grant? And I haven't received that response yet, so by the time we're here in June, I should have that. Anything else, Matt, from that discussion?
No, I think it was an excellent conversation. I think that they brought some things to our attention that we weren't really thinking about, and we brought some things to their attention. They certainly understand the increase in anxiety and depression and things of that nature amongst their peers. So they're not looking at it through that or excluding that lens. And so they talked a little bit more maybe it should be happening at the elementary, middle, or the middle school to really kind of gear them up so that when they come here, which was another interesting piece. But it was kind of funny when they were talking about sort of the adults who put these things in their hands at a very early age are now sort of the people who are saying, hey, you know what, you probably shouldn't have had them back then either. So
you will hear me recommend an outright 7:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. ban on cell phones at your K through 8 school meetings in the next month. I will be recommending that and leaving that ball in your court within the next month for those two schools for that exact reason. Getting especially middle school students properly sort of focused and maybe starting to learn that they can live without these things could be a precursor to greater success at the high school level.
Sure, I agree.
Does that include watches and all that too? I'm just.
No, it's a great,
No, that's a good question as well.
It's a great question, because they can call on their watches, right?
You can do
I
everything.
know nothing about these things.
They're not really watches.
No, they're really phones, right? That is tough, because there's so many devices out there where you can communicate.
I do think that we're talking about two separate groups of people.
Right.
You know, two developmentally different ages, and it's certainly an interesting topic for next month.
Yes, there you go. There you go, Ann. You're in charge of that one. Did you want to talk to staffing shortages?
So the last issue of the National Superintendents Association magazine was largely about staffing shortages. This is an issue across the country. It's not a New Hampshire issue. It's not an Alton or Barnstead or Prospect Mountain issue. But our experience for Prospect Mountain High School this year has been every opening we've posted, we've been able to fill. In fact, last week we posted an anticipated opening that still hasn't come to us, so I don't know if it's going to happen or not. And we have 2 qualified applicants ready to go. Meaning we've interviewed and deemed them qualified already. For the AD position, you have 5 interviews scheduled for tomorrow. That was out of, I think, 10 applicants. We had, I don't know, a dozen applicants for dean and assistant principal positions at least, many qualified. So our experience has not been that we're unable to hire across the board. There are certain things that are hard to find. You know, we've been able to do it, but it's difficult to find certified special ed case managers and teachers. But again, we've been able to do it. So either it's, I thought Matt was knocking on wood, either we're having a unique experience this spring, or there are some other things that we're doing okay, because we're getting applications, we're getting qualified applicants, and we've been able to fill positions.
Okay.
Not what I thought I was going to say 4 months ago.
Good transition to the AD, the vice principal and dean.
Yeah, do you wanna
So
do
I
the
was planning to do all this under personnel, but I'll do whatever you want. So you've seen data in the dashboard month by month regarding discipline. And you've heard us and others talk about the increase in disciplinary referrals in all schools since the pandemic. You've also heard some, I'll describe it as controversy here at the high school this year around the idea that students can't necessarily continue to be tracked into basic, general, CP, or honors classes simply because there aren't enough students anymore to make all those classes. We end up with class sizes of 7 or of 5 in some cases. So something's got to give. I think that the principal, David Latshaw, and the assistant principal, to a lesser degree, need to be instructional leaders in the school. There needs to be a conversation, not only when Matt can show up, about instruction, about curriculum, about planning, about assessment, about what we're doing in the classroom. And if a principal and AP are spending 90% of their time running around trying to find students who have cut class or eloped out of the building or gotten into some other kind of disciplinary scrape, they just don't have the time to do that. So I have worked before in a school that had a dean of students position. Some of you others here may be familiar with that. The dean of students is a frontline, non-teaching, certified staff member who focuses on first level discipline, the stuff that doesn't belong in a classroom with a teacher, but somebody who's qualified enough and has enough expertise in student behavior to help support teachers learning what can be managed in the classroom more effectively. So it's really that first resource to handle discipline all the time. That should be, vast majority, a very high percentage of disciplinary activity in the school, leaving what we would refer to as tier 2 or tier 3 discipline for the assistant principal, and then hopefully in rare instances, the principal. So that's the theory. I have emailed you all draft job descriptions for both positions because the assistant principal job description gets revised to focus more on supervision and evaluation and supporting the principal's instructional leadership, and the dean takes over tiered behavioral supports, to put it in simplest terms.
So is the dean of students certified as an administrator? That was the question I had. Would you expect them to be certified as?
So our candidate is, because we received a whole bunch of applications from people who are.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
I would conceive of it as a place that somebody might look to for their first role in administration as they explore an interest in being an administrator. So you could, as long as somebody's a certified educator, they might be working toward administrator certification. But in this case, we have somebody who's been working as an assistant principal at the middle school level and has a PhD in psychology.
That's great.
Who's relocating into the area and is interested in being our dean of students.
Okay, so what about the monies, since we didn't put it in the budget? You were going to
So,
explain that to everyone?
Yep. So I've gotten quizzical looks sometimes when I talk about implementing a budget being different from developing a budget, because what's the difference? So 3, 4, 5 here, and I'll send the rest around here because I already know basically what it says.
These are big.
So, well,
Okay.
if I do it a different way, you can't read it.
Okay.
So when we budget for a position, we budget based on the incumbent in the position. So this doesn't have names on it, but there are first and last name columns just hidden when I printed this, in this. So every year when Heidi develops the draft budget, current employees are listed in that budget. The budget includes what it's going to take to pay them next year, and if it's a teacher, that's based on their collective bargaining agreement. If it's not a teacher, if it's an administrator, then your practice here has been to carry this year's number forward with no change, but then you separately fund an increase line that you've traditionally referred to as the 3% pool, but in recent years it's been the 4% pool. When we start hiring people, we find that it's not always the same number, right? So what you can see is, and in special education, actually it's a great place to start because employee going out and employee coming in are exactly the same numbers. So you see a subtotal of no change, right? 0. That's a good one to start with because it didn't change. Now look at social studies. We have 2 retirees in the social studies department and 2 new teachers who have been hired and appointed already. We will spend $29,311, sorry to read over your shoulder,
No, it's okay.
less than is in the budget for those 2 positions. That's not because we did anything, but we hired people to replace the retirees, and based on their education and experience, their placement on the salary scale that's already been negotiated with the teachers is a little bit lower net than the 2 people retiring. In science, at the request of the Joint Budget Committee, we came to you and reduced the request in athletics for a part-time trainer by, I want to say, the neighborhood of $28,000, Heidi, with the plan that if we had an opening in science that could be 50% athletic trainer and then teach a couple of science electives, we would do that. And you can see how the money shakes out based on what I project it's going to cost to fill that position. We have a net savings in science of $15,158. I don't need to read them all to you because now you can, I assume, see what's going on here. But at the bottom, these are non-teaching roles. So this year we had an assistant principal, an IEP team chair. We had 40% in the budget of a library media specialist not teaching. We had 100% of a technology integrator who was teaching 2 classes this year, but that was the first time in over a decade that we had asked the tech integrator to teach. And then if we bring in a library media technologist who's Google certified, and we've received a bunch of applications and have either 4 or 5 interviews scheduled for later this week, we should be able to fully staff the library with somebody who can provide technology support for staff and students through Google certification with one 1.0 full-time equivalent position instead of the combination of these 2. Again, it's not something we engineered, but once the employees made the decision to move on, we have to decide how to recommend filling the positions, and this is what I recommend for a school that I think when these non-teaching positions were conceived and approved had 550 students running around, and we'll be lucky to have 400 here next year. So as we get smaller, at some point when the opportunity presents itself, those are the better times to make changes as opposed to the much less pleasant actually eliminating positions from the budget. So if we do that with a Google certified library media technologist and then include the proposed dean of students and assistant principal positions, I believe we will be saving just below $45,000 total against the budget. Does that make sense?
Makes
Overall,
total
any
sense.
questions? So again, when you hear me say it next time, there's a difference between developing a budget and implementing a budget. This is what I'm talking about. You develop the budget based on who's here at the time, but when you implement it, not all the same people are here, and things change.
Thanks for doing that. I appreciate it.
It was already on my agenda for tonight,
Okay.
before you called me.
Okay, on to action items. We have 2025 general assurances that are required by law. So can I have a motion, please, to accept these?
Make a motion to accept the general assurance requirements and definitions participation in federal programs for FY '25.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, regional agreement for Career and Technical Education Center. Did everyone have a chance to look at this? Can I have a motion, please?
Motion to accept the regional agreement for Career and Technical Education Center, Region number 9 for 24-25 through 28.
Through 28.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry?
I like the major changes.
They reduced it by a lot. And I think it had been so long since it had been approved or reapproved that they translated it into current language. I think I can probably speak for both of us that we were impressed at their annual meeting.
Absolutely.
That night. One thing that they did that I thought was really nice is that they were transparent about the formula they used to determine how many seats are available, not only at LRTC, but in each program for students from each school. I'm not sure that they had done that transparently for us in the past. They might have, but I had never been able to get my hands on it, and they provided that for
Right.
us. So we now have that, which it just, I think it's, for me, it's reassuring that there's an established process. You know, there's no randomness or voodoo about why, you know, right now we have 3 students on the waiting list for health occupations, for example, and there's no secret about why they're on the waiting list. We can actually see how they made that determination, and it is fair. So for me, Mrs. Landry, that was the most important thing
And
to see.
the dinner was very impressive. The kids served us, and they were so
Skylight.
enthusiastic about it. It was great to see.
I've done many years.
Yeah.
It's always impressive.
Yeah, very impressive.
Of the ambassador students they had representing LRTC there, they had a Prospect Mountain Culinary Arts student, Bailey Kinney, who later, I think last week, was named their outstanding student this year in the Culinary Arts program, and will be receiving a scholarship award for that at Scholarship Night in a couple of weeks.
And it was very tasty, too. All righty, I have a motion and a second, so can I have a vote, please? All those in favor of accepting the agreement?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. We're on to awarding bids. Did you want to speak to these at all, Heidi?
You want me to? I can, Mr. Chair, if you want me to, the committee.
Okay.
So I met tonight as the Buildings and Ground Committee to go over these bids. First one was the exterior door replacement bid. It's advertised at Baysider. The bid that came in the lowest was Howard Systems LLC, Rochester. They happen to be the same ones that did the lighting outside, and they've been doing a good job. This will be all the damaged doors that are on the first floor of the building, and we recommend Howard Systems LLC.
Make a motion to accept the bid from Howard Systems LLC for the exterior, for the door replacement bid.
Any discussion or questions? I'm pretty impressed with how low they came in compared to everyone else. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Next up is a landscape bid. There's only one bid. It's the same company that's been here already. They're pretty happy with what's been doing it. There was a lot of discussion about looking at some of their schedule and some other things that they do. Eric brought up some good points, which were noted by the superintendent, which will be relayed back to them as some opportunities to maybe look at some things. But as the full board, full committee, we recommend the landscaping bid for the Baysider as presented.
Make a motion to accept the landscaping bid from Sumner Scape for landscaping.
Second.
All right, any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Next up was a fertilization bid, and not the lowest bid, but second lowest was Burke's Tree Service. They are currently doing the work now. Heidi said they like the work they're doing. Again, some suggestions were made by Eric, who's done some long stuff before for opportunities to look at for them, but overall the committee voted to move forward Burke's Tree Service.
Make a motion to accept the bid from Burke's Tree Service for the fertilization bid.
Second.
Any discussions or questions?
I've worked with Burke's, they're good.
Oh, yeah. Any, all right. Can I hear a vote, please? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. End of the year encumbrances. we have some discussion about this?
Is this all the ones we did a list on?
Yeah, I mean, there was a discussion in the Buildings and Grounds meeting with a plan to come back when we have numbers in June. You want to go any further than that? It's up to.
There's a lengthy discussion. There's a lengthy list of things. Some things that need to be replaced, meaning some things we would like to do. But we'll come back with a list for next month as we get we're going to meet again as Building and Grounds before our next meeting to solidify what that looks like and what the overall cost will be, whether we're going to take it from encumbrances or some other place, and with suggestion to the full board.
There are a couple of things that we're going to ask nicely, but you have to say yes. Like there's a pinhole in the radiator for our backup generator, so you don't have to fix it. But if you want to have a backup generator, you're going to fix it.
The freezer needs to be fixed.
So this is
Same idea there.
Well, and the generator wouldn't work effectively this year because we couldn't provide a shelter for people, so we definitely need to fix the generator.
There was at least a couple we had that they're going to have to use.
Right.
But the numbers look like they work. We'll.
And is
Again,
there
when
any
Heidi
hope
has
that we
real
can
numbers,
get
we'll bring
another
it
van? I have to say that the van is being used all the time and in high demand.
I second that.
Yeah.
You what?
So we're a year early
I know we are,
against
but-
the capital plan. But if you want us to try to work in a van now, we certainly can. There's a reason why we suggested a every third year schedule in the first place, and to try to eventually always own 3. You will use them and you will save money compared to busing, guaranteed.
I think it's a good idea to at least look into it.
One who coached tennis this year, trips of only 8 girls, or didn't make it, maybe 5 or 6, traveling up to Berlin or White Mountain Regional in a very small group in a giant bus doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
Paying the bus driver when the coaches can drive that small van.
Right.
So,
And so much more comfortable.
and you can get back here on time, way earlier than what the bus can. So,
Yeah.
There are a lot of advantages to the van, and from my understanding, there's a high demand for it.
There is.
So.
It can also be used for taking students into the community,
Right.
students who are.
you could take
Special education.
teachers taking education if they went to, as a group.
Any of the community connections, whether they're special ed or not.
Exactly.
Really. So it's great to see them in the community. It's great to
figure
see
it
them
out.
out and about. Even some of the PAC activities could use
Right.
the van.
Right.
So,
And they
anyway,
have.
and they have, right. So anytime you have a small group of students and you're not using a huge bus, you're saving a lot of money. So, anyway, that was one thing I had asked Tim and Heidi, kind of look into, see if we can.
Heidi's really excited. We will figure it out.
I can tell.
We will
Excited.
figure it out.
I just feel like it would be an advantage, but if you could bring that to us, that would be great.
We will.
See how much it would cost.
We will.
All right. Okay, furniture donation?
So, above a certain dollar threshold, the school board has to accept donations. We don't have a dollar figure, but it's definitely above the threshold. Southern New Hampshire University, just before the pandemic, developed a building in Manchester, right on the river, to use. This won't make sense now, but it did at the time before the pandemic. It was the office building for their remote programs, for their online programs. So they built classrooms and cubicles and office space for everybody who was going to go there to work in their dramatically growing online programs. And again, if that sounds a little silly now, that's the benefit of having lived through what we've lived through over the last 5 years or so. But they did it. In the process, they purchased some number over 200 6x6 cubicles, for example. I didn't do a big color printing handout here, it's not. They have hundreds of these. They have a smaller number of these collaboration desks with chairs on wheels. We talked to them. These are 5x5 steel frame, maple or birch top tables. They're essentially brand new. These are in storage over there in the basement of their building. They are donating to schools, school districts, and nonprofit organizations in order to fulfill both a net zero environmental impact mission that SNHU's trustees have adopted, and also, I believe, probably for some kind of financial tax benefit or something like that. So we have been approved by them to receive one set or 4 of these cubicle desks, which we can use in IT. 4 to 6 of those collaboration tables, which we are hoping we can sort of reimagine a learning commons type of space here with some more flexible, all this stuff is on wheels, it can be moved around, there are electrical and technology hookups built into this stuff. And then we have some computer lab classrooms across the hall, which is where we thought these 5x5 square tables might end up being useful. I just want you to accept the donation of as much of this stuff as they give us, because whatever the dollar value is, I guarantee it's above the threshold that you need to accept.
Can you get new chairs for in here?
So a lot of this is like tentatively approved. If it's still there when we get there, we can have it. And we can't really do it until after the last day.
Let's get
So
a van
we're working
going.
out how to do that.
Get a van to go collect it?
We'll probably end up with a moving van, a box truck that day. It's going to take up
I
some
make
space.
a motion to accept any and all furniture from SNHU.
Perfect.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Program of studies, new classes. So, my question is, did the teachers develop these new classes?
So yes, as a result of the hiring of new staff, especially in the music and choir area, where you'll see the radio and broadcast, the music and cinema, we were able to add those classes on. The nutrition for sports performance would be when we have our athletic directors teaching some classes as an opportunity. One of the things from last year we heard through the master schedule was we were lacking electives. And we had lots of kids in study halls because there were no electives. So this year we've done a much better job. The teachers have come up forward with some of their adjustments and will continue to grow within those semester-long classes.
Okay, I just want to make sure they were teacher-generated. Okay, thank you.
And I just want to mention that having enough electives means that we won't have study halls in the cafeteria, which is a building management issue. So we'll have more kids in classes, smaller study halls, teachers can be in their classroom getting their work done, kids will be better contained. So it's a win-win.
Okay. Any other questions? Do I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to accept the new classes presented.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion?
It's fantastic.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
May I say one more thing?
Sure.
I'm also excited because we've had trouble having a fall and a spring consistent theater program. And so I'm excited that we're going to be offering classes, get that energy, excitement going, and then be able to offer that for our students that are interested in that.
That's great.
Yeah.
All righty. We're on to the FBLA competition, Orlando. Any question, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the FBLA field trip. So let's.
Second.
All right.
I would like to note that Katie Healy did an excellent job of writing letters to the board and communicating all of the information so that we actually had it before your report. So kudos to her.
Yeah, they've done a great job. It's very impressive, all of these people have been placed and ready to go on.
I love how Jen equips our leaders, our next generation of leaders, and she really gets those kids out there.
Kudos to her also, to all of them. So, any other discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We're on to the 2025 trip to Athens, Florence, and Rome.
Make a
They need
motion to accept
chaperones?
the trip to Athens, Florence, and Rome, and the money it's going to cost on my pocket to send my kid again.
A second it.
All right.
I'd also like to note that I don't know if Mr. Long is here, but there was a very nice segment on Chronicle last night about Prospect Mountain and the trip that they took to Normandy and matching up the graves with soldiers. It was very nice, and it was the history teacher, and I'm sorry I don't remember his
Mr. Foley.
Mike.
Thank you. Had really talked about that, and it was just fantastic.
Nice, I wish I'd known about it. I didn't see it.
So it's available online. It's easy to find. We can send you the link. Also, I had a conversation with Mike. We may be meeting some of those students at your June meeting to talk about it.
That's
And
great.
Just, you know, I mean, been fortunate to send our daughter twice now, and she's come away with a lot of knowledge. And the stuff that she has learned, just going through as Mr. Long, what he does with these kids, and the history and everything else, it's not just goof off and fun. I mean, they walk 10 miles sometimes a day. It was just amazing, all the stuff they got to see and learn, so. It's been
Well, it's an
fantastic.
opportunity that they might not have with their families, because it's 4 times the amount of money, so they get to go to these places that they may never get to see again. So it's really a great opportunity, I agree.
Or the parents never get to see.
Yeah, too bad you don't get to go, unless they want
And right on the
chaperones.
heels of that, we'll talk about the Spanish trip.
Alrighty.
In terms of the history and Mr. Poland and the History Club and the research they've been doing, on June 6th is a special time to celebrate D-Day at the Wright Museum, and I will scan that in and send it to the superintendent, and he can forward it to you.
Okay,
In
great.
case you would like to go, that's in Wolfboro.
All right, all those in favor of approving the trip?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty, that one's approved. We're on to the Costa Rica, San Jose, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, no, I'd like to see you pronounce that, Carol.
No.
Yeah, I make a motion to
Phonetic.
accept that trip to wherever they're going, Costa Rica, ending
some
with
reading.
wherever they're going.
Second, and thank you to Senora and Ms. Dill.
Yes, thanks for all the
Great,
effort,
great,
this is great. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, and I heard from the kids who, not for any coaching sports stuff, who had a fantastic time and learned a lot, and just were appreciative of going, including some people maybe next to you over there. You know, they're all excited, and what a great job. I would ask, since one of the students is here, do you want to say anything?
You don't have to.
Yes, he does.
Wants to.
Oh, one of the students.
My name's Blake Snell. The Spanish trip was a very good experience. I learned a lot about the Spanish culture itself, and they speak a very different language than really what I had.
And we're moving to Barcelona, they were speaking Catalan. So the kids didn't realize they were going to be learning 3 or 4 languages as we travel to the country.
Yeah. Fun time. I met a lot of people and I had a raw experience. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Appreciate
doing
it.
that.
For the approval and for being so supportive of these trips. The kids get so much out of it, and we felt that it overflowed into their other classes. And I think some of the benefits are things like Mr. Fuller on TV, lessons. Well, I got to watch it.
I didn't see
It's great piece, but the ties and the connections it makes to the other classes is so important. So this one thing we know for Costa Rica is particularly special to Ms. Dill because she actually did research in Puerto Rico about 15 years ago. So she's excited for her students' life. So.
And the cost came down.
Awesome.
Yes, well,
That's fantastic.
that was something that we tried. We just think that the added excursion would be something that we discussed with the kids when they sign up. What we found when we were in Spain was that there was some added things they put on the trip that we could have done for free. So the kids actually had some free time to take, they would have gone off and done their own, and I said, I really want to go to this museum. If you guys want to come with me, please send me a message and we'll go. Every single kid messaged me by 11 o'clock at night, said we're going to go with you, Senora. So it was free for the kids to get in, and it was free for me to get in as a teacher. So there's some opportunities once we're in Costa Rica that they can do some excursions, but I didn't put them on as add-ons on what was in front of you. It's more discussion of what they actually want to do once we have that solid group. So it was able to keep the cost down.
Great.
Do you have questions?
Thanks for all the energy you put into this. We appreciate it.
And thank you for coming and speaking.
Thank you for coming tonight. All those in favor of approving the trip?
Aye.
Any opposed? Approved. All righty, personnel.
So, let's see, non-union staff, reappointments. I have a handout for you. You're gonna pass the rest of these down. You can do the same, please. Thank you. So where you have staff covered by collective bargaining agreements, you don't have to specifically approve their wage changes. each year because you've already agreed to collective bargaining agreements that cover those employees. So these are all the employees in SAU 301. That includes the central office as well as the high school, who are not covered by collective bargaining agreements. And again, it's on 1117, so you have a fighting chance of being able to read it. This does have names on it, as you can see, along with titles. There are two that you've actually already approved, Paul Borsch, fourth down, and David Latshaw at the top of the high school list. You don't need to act on those tonight because you already have. The others are my proposals. You create a pool in the budget from which to fund most of these adjustments. There's an exception to that, and that's food service, which is supposed to be self-funding, although we keep talking about losses at the end of every year. What I've done progressively year by year with these recommendations is base more and more of them on your collective bargaining agreements. So, for example, down at the bottom, even though your school counselors at the high school are not covered by the PMTA agreement, their current salaries that we set last year and these recommendations are based on treating them as if they were covered by the teacher's bargaining agreement. And my reasoning for that is that in many, many school districts, those positions are covered by collective bargaining. So if school counselors are looking at jobs in other school districts, that's what you're competing against. So rationalizing that somebody is not in a union and therefore we can give them a lower raise than if they were doesn't make competitive sense in a labor market where people might be looking around. Just my opinion and my recommendation to you. Likewise, buildings and grounds right above that, the custodians, I based on the support staff para 1 wage column. They're not covered by that agreement. This doesn't make them covered by that agreement, but it's a rational way of establishing wages that's not random or subjective. It's based on something other than an opinion. Moving up to food service, same thing, using the para 1 wage scale for those part-time employees, and if you look at their total of wages, you'll notice they are really part-time employees, 15 hours a week or something like that, just during the school year. Then there's a group of employees moving up to high school administration who you see are also based on the support staff wage scale. They function in either administrative support roles or student support roles, similar to a para 2, but they are not para 2s. So again, basing my wage recommendation on that contract doesn't somehow make that contract apply to them, but it gives a rational basis for a recommendation that's not, well, I think this person does a good job and I'm not sure that person does a good job, which frankly, I can't do that for 250 employees, nor should you want me to try. So there are a couple of recommendations that stand out. On the higher side, we've got one IT support staff member who's doing an excellent job and is probably qualified to move into more of a systems administrator role in another district if he chose to do so. I'm suggesting that we try to retain him so that we have a network administrator of the future with a significant wage increase. His total salary would become $50,207 for next year, so it's not a obscene, huge amount of money for this well-qualified, college-educated employee, but it's on a percentage basis, you can see a significant recommendation. There are a couple of others where I've given you notes on the right. Somebody's performance has been excellent in Heidi's office. We have a new employee who's only been here about 90 days, so I recommended a little bit less of an adjustment because that's still a fairly new employee. If you have any questions, I can take them. If you want to talk about people's performance, we should go to non-public to have that conversation.
I'm fine with nominating them as presented, but I don't know how people feel.
Second.
So do you want to do it all three separately or together?
How do you need this read, Tim?
You could do it as one slate if you're prepared to do that.
I am.
On, what's the new role for the director of sped ed?
So the change here is that Mrs. McDonald has been our associate director, and she is moving into the director role.
Oh, okay.
So she is overseeing special education in all three schools. And Mr. Borsch, we actually were able to work it out so he can start tomorrow, which is great, so we can start to get to know people a little bit. He'll be responsible for the high school, and he'll work as her associate director. It means we have an administrator available if either one of them is ever unavailable for any reason. So there's some nice redundancy there. It's a little bit of a change in how we had been conceiving this. At one time, I was suggesting to the board that you would only have one special ed administrator, and you all looked at me the way these two are looking at me now. So this accommodates that change. But that's the new role for Pam McDonald, is from associate director to director. She's now responsible for all of special ed.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussions? I do want to say that we're accepting these resignations with regret, because some of them have devoted several years to our district. And it's sad to see them go, but I wish them their best. Can I have a vote, please? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Just one other note while on personnel, I just want into public record that I did apply, or did ask to come back as the boys varsity soccer coach, as there's no policy in place. There's also precedent where our AD, John Larson, coached boys varsity baseball at Newfound Regional High School while he was on the school board there. So it has been done in New Hampshire. So I just want that on public record.
I just want to caution us not to talk about personnel in the public sessions. Okay. All righty, time for public input. Do I have any public input?
Good evening.
Is that not working?
How about now?
The mic isn't working for public input?
You're welcome to use mine, Charlie.
Okay, good evening. My name is Charlotte D. Jager. I'm an Alton resident and a former employee of Alton Central School and here at Prospect Mountain. In my over 25 years as a resident here in Alton, I have never seen the mass exodus of employees that we've experienced in the last 2 years. I'm sure that U.S. school board members are also concerned about this loss of staff. I also believe that you have become increasingly aware of why that's happening, and you can trace it back to the toxic leadership style of our current superintendent. I'm here to plead with you as school board members to do everything within your power to remove the current leadership. I believe it's in the best interest of our staff and students to have a superintendent who models integrity and honesty and who treats employees with value. I thought it was interesting during the discussion about the proposed versus the implemented budget that the reason we keep having these excesses is because the opportunity presents itself when we replace one salary with a different salary. Well, the reason the opportunity keeps presenting itself is because of the leadership that's in place. I worked here last May. I was still in the office, in the counseling office. And as of next fall, there were 15 different employees who were in the counseling office and the main office. 15 employees. Next fall, 2 of them will be left. Make of that what you will. But I think it's pretty important for you guys to investigate why that's going on and be mindful of it. The reason I continue to come before you is because I think it's vitally important to speak up about this loss of staff. It's important for the health of our schools, for the morale of our staff, and that ultimately trickles down to our kids. I brought my 2 daughters here with me tonight. They're going to be new. They're both graduates of Prospect, and they're both going to be new teachers. The reason I did that is I want them to have hope that if they experience a culture and a climate like this in a school district that they go to, that someone in the community will continue to come before you and say, fix this. Help the teachers here. Help the staff that are here. I hope that someone will stand up. I hope that you guys will stand up and solve this problem, because it matters. It matters to our schools, and our kids, the students that are here, deserve the stability that the caring staff here have been in the past. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to speak in public input? All right, then I'll close public input. Future agenda and follow-up items. Anyone want to add anything to the future agenda other than my van?
No, we just wanted to firm up the date for Prospect for JMA's.
Oh, yeah.
The 18th.
18th?
Yep.
And
Good.
we'll firm up after the date for all.
Yeah, I'm not sure why there was a little confusion, I guess, about the date for our next meeting and this team, but we're supposed to meet the 18th.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll be back with the buildings and grounds recommendations on the
Okay.
encumbrances.
Well, and remember that Tim emailed us articles to read about the phones in schools. We should probably look at those before our discussion.
Sure. All right, anything else? All right, we have a couple reasons to go into non-public. You wanted us to go into non-public, Tim?
A, C, and I. Please don't forget I.
Yeah. Motion of non-public under RSA 91A, there's 3, 3:2, 8, 3:2, A, and C, and also 91A, 32C, I.
Personnel. Is that
Personnel and C.
We have a presentation tonight, too.
And presentation, yeah.
All right, so that makes us go into non-public. Thank you for coming.